Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Terry Koss Show, a wrestling podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Terry Koss, coming at you from the Great White North up here in Canada. Just a little about myself. I have been a wrestling fan for probably close to or over 20 years. I liked wrestling because my dad liked wrestling. He started watching the AWA in the mid-'80s. And then when I was a kid, every Saturday morning or so, the WWF, or WWE, now WWF, would be on TV, and I remember guys like, the Big Boss Man, Mr. Perfect, the Texas Tornado, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and I don't know what hooked me. Maybe it was the characters, maybe it was the wrestling, I don't know what it was, just, it hooked me. I really got into wrestling around, 1992, 93, the start of the New Generation era, as WWE would call it. One of my favorites at that time was Diesel. I thought he was so freaking cool. I liked Razor, I liked Bret Hart, I liked, so many of those guys from that time period. But enough about me, let's get to the podcast. This podcast basically is going to be This Week in Wrestling, or me recapping the couple weeks in wrestling that have gone by so far. So let's kick it off with the WWE Draft. Now, the WWE Draft happened on... Give me one quick second. Happened on July 11th. So, Raw and SmackDown, both are separate brands now. Stephanie McMahon becoming the commissioner of Raw, and Shane McMahon becoming the commissioner of SmackDown. So they both had to pick a GM. Stephanie picks Mick Foley, a WWE Hall of Famer. Great pick, in my opinion. And Shane McMahon picks Daniel Bryan, former four-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And this is how the picks went. Raw picked first Seth Rollins. Great pick. SmackDown's first pick was Dean Ambrose. And as you will hear and as you will listen throughout this podcast, Dean Ambrose is my number one guy in the WWE. When he won the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at Money in the Bank, I was so happy. And I was wearing a Dean Ambrose shirt, so I think that was extra good luck. Raw's second pick was the WWE Women's Champion at the time, Charlotte. SmackDown's second pick was AJ Styles, great pick. And in the draft, 6 wrestlers were to be drafted from NXT. So the third draft pick for Raw was former NXT champion Finn Balor. I think a great addition to Raw. Raw's next pick was Roman Reigns. SmackDown's next pick was John Cena. Nice to see him back on SmackDown for the first time in years. Raw's fifth pick was Brock Lesnar. SmackDown's fourth pick was the returning Randy Orton. Raw's sixth pick was The New Day, and again, as you will hear through this podcast, I have become a big fan of these guys. I think they're just... When they first started off, I was like, I don't know about these guys, but then they really started to get going, and I got... to me, it's just the funny factor. I like funny, comedic wrestlers, so... Raw's seventh pick was a fellow Canadian, Sami Zayn, formerly known as El Generico in Ring of Honor. SmackDown's fifth pick was Bray Wyatt. Raw's eighth pick was Sasha Banks. SmackDown's sixth pick is my favorite WWE diva, Becky Lynch. Raw's ninth pick was Chris Jericho. Raw's 10th pick was the United States champion Rusev with Lana. SmackDown's 7th pick was The Miz with Maurice, so it's nice because you have the secondary champions, the United States and the Intercontinental champion, both on different brands. Raw's 11th pick was Kevin Owens. Great pick, fellow Canadian. SmackDown's 8th pick was the upcoming Baron Corbin. Raw's 12th pick, my favorite WWE tag team at this point in time, Enzo and Big Cass. When they first started out, I was like, I don't know about these guys. And then Enzo started getting on the mic, and he started rolling, and I love these guys. Raw's 13th pick was Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, former 3-time IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. For those who don't know, IWGP stands for International Wrestling Grand Prix, and is the titles of New Japan Pro Wrestling, one of the, if not the biggest wrestling promotion in Japan. So that broke up the club of AJ Styles and Gallows and Anderson. SmackDown's ninth pick was American Alpha. Now, American Alpha, former NXT Tag Team Champions of Jason Jordan and Chad Gable, had an excellent match. And I believe it was NXT Brooklyn against the Revival. Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder won the belts. Great pick, obviously. Raw's 14th pick was Big Show. SmackDown's 10th pick was Dolph Ziggler. Awesome. It's good to see maybe, Dolph get a push from this. Raw's 15th pick was NXT's Nia Jax. I have yet to see her wrestle, but from what I've heard, she is quite something. Raw's 16th pick was Neville. Of course, the High Flyer. I freaking love that guy. SmackDown's 11th pick was another fellow Canadian, Natalia. Raw's 17th pick was the Swiss Superman, Cesaro, who I've really gotten to like over the past few years. SmackDown's 12th pick was Alberto Del Rio, and Raw's 18th pick was Sheamus. Now, those were all the picks that were on TV. Now we get to the other picks that came from the Draft Center Live on the WWE Network. Raw's 19th pick was Golden Truth, Goldust and R-Truth. Not a bad team. SmackDown's 13th pick was the Usos, former WWE Tag Team Champions, Jimmy and Jay. Awesome team. Raw's 20th pick was Titus O'Neil. SmackDown's 14th pick was Kane. Raw's 21st pick was Paige. Raw's 22nd pick was Darren Young with Bob Backlund. I really like this gimmick. Some people maybe don't, but I like this gimmick of make Darren Young great again. Of course, you have Bob Backlund, the former two-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion, won the title from Superstar Billy Graham, I believe, in 1978, when it was known as the WWF Championship, and later lost it in 1983 to the Iron Sheik. Regained it in 1994 when he beat Bret Hart. Lost it a few days later to Diesel in about 8 seconds. But it's still good to see Bob Backlund back. Another thing you'll hear about me is I love old school. I love the old school guys coming back and seeing them again, and that's just great. SmackDown's 15th pick was the high-flying Kalisto. The Lucha Dragons, Kalisto and Sin Cara had split up before the draft because they wanted to try singles careers. Raw's 23rd pick was Sin Cara, not a bad pick. SmackDown's 16th pick was Naomi. Raw's 24th was Jack Swagger. SmackDown's 17th was The Ascension. I really would like to see them do something with these guys. They were really good in NXT, had a reign of probably almost the whole year as NXT Tag Team Champions. I'd like to really see what they can do up here in the WWE. Raw's 25th pick was the Dudley Boys, of course. SmackDown's 18th pick was a guy that I'm really getting behind. I'm on his bandwagon. I'm on the Zack Ryder bandwagon, Zack Ryder. Raw's 26th pick was Summer Rae. SmackDown's 19th was the high-flying Apollo Crews, who is really awesome, mixes that has a really good combination of speed and strength. Raw's 27th was the veteran Mark Henry. SmackDown's 20th was NXT's Alexa Bliss. Raw's 28th was the big man, Braun Strowman. SmackDown's 21st was the newly formed tag team of Breezango, Tyler Breeze and Fandango, who are, I think, kind of getting on a bit of a roll. Raw's 29th was Bo Dallas. SmackDown's 22nd was Eva Marie. Raw's 30th was the Shining Stars, Primo and Epico. Raw's 23rd was the Vaudevillains, Aiden English and Simon Gotch. Raw's 31st was Alicia Fox. SmackDown's 24th was Eric Rowan, so that splits up the Wyatt family. Raw's 32nd is Dana Brooke. SmackDown's 25th, coming from NXT, Mojo Rawley. I don't know about you guys, but I like this guy. He always talks about being hyped. I don't know what being hyped is, but it sounds good. He's around the same age as me, and he's actually not a bad wrestler. Pretty good. Raw's 33rd pick was Social Outcast's Curtis Axel. And the last pick, 26th pick, was NXT's Carmella, who used to be teamed with Enzo and Big Cass. So it'll be interesting to see what she will do on her own. Now, in this podcast, I don't only talk about WWE. I talk about WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Chikara, New Japan Pro Wrestling, something I've become quite new to, ICW, Insane Championship Wrestling. So let's talk about TNA. Right now, you got Moose coming in from Ring of Honor. Very surprised to see him at Destination X. The match, Lashley against Eddie, didn't really go as planned because, Mike Bennett wrecked it, yada, yada, yada. So the next week we have Lashley up against Eddie in a steel cage match. I was really hoping. I knew in my head that he wasn't going to win, but my heart wanted Eddie to win. And when he hit him with the Boston Knee Party, I thought he had him. 1-2, Lashley kicked out. Lashley was able to defeat him and become both the World and X Division champion. Excuse me. Now they have the Bound for Glory playoff series. Not too sure about that. It's a nice concept, having to find a number one contender for Bound for Glory, as they used to do with the Bound for Glory series. The men they had in this tournament, little mini tournament, were Matt Hardy, James Storm, EC3, Eli Drake, Drew Galloway, Bram, Mike Bennett, and Jeff Hardy. Now, so far, in the first round, Broken Matt Hardy beat James Storm. EC3 defeated Eli Drake. Drew Galloway, my number one guy in TNA, defeated Bram. And Mike Bennett defeated Jeff Hardy. Now, those who follow TNA probably have seen the final deletion. That was something I really cannot put into words. It was something, like you talk to other people and you can't really describe what it was. It was something. Now, a lot of people like Broken Matt Hardy. I really don't. I don't get what his accent is. I'm a bigger Jeff Hardy fan, but it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Matt Hardy, I guess now renaming him Brother Nero because he owns the rights to Jeff's name. And, so that's interesting to say the least. We have Tyrus turning to a babyface when he teamed with Grado and Mahabali Shera up against the Tribunal, Baron Dax and Basile Baraka, and Al Snow, because they said the Fixer. I'm like, what the heck is the Fixer? And so they look, and because it was 3-on-2, and I'm like, okay, who were Grado and Shera going to get as partner? And I thought, well, they got the Tribunal has an original ECW guy in Al Snow, so I assumed it was going to be Tommy Dreamer, because I believe he's still working for TNA. I could be wrong. But it turned out the Fixer was indeed Tyrus, and Tyrus was the difference maker in that match. I like Grado. I think he's pretty cool. He is super over in ICW. If you've never seen Insane Championship Wrestling, definitely check it out. It's something I can't recommend highly enough. Like, it's a promotion out of Scotland. Has guys such as Grado, Cruiserweight Classic competitor Noam Dar, Drew Galloway, and so many other, great talents. I've started to get into it. I don't know a whole lot about it, but it's pretty freaking cool. I'll say that much. I know they did have 2 shows on the BBC about Insane Championship Wrestling. Just give me one sec to look it up. Oh, I know I should be ready for this, but I'm not. I'm doing this off the cuff. And I believe it's just called Insane Fight Club. I believe is the name for it. Both aired on either, I think it's BBC 2. I was actually able to find both on YouTube. And in the first one, we meet, guys like Grado, a guy by the name of Jack Jester, who at that time would become the ICW World Heavyweight Champion. We meet the ICW owner at that time, Mark Dallas. I'm looking at it now. The first one is called Insane Fight Club, and the second one is called Insane Fight Club 2. Now, again, guys like Colt Cabana have appeared there, Mr. Anderson. Speaking of ICW, one guy I gotta talk about is this Joe Hendry guy. This guy is something else. I have not yet to see him wrestle. His entrances are what make him interesting. Now, some wrestlers will come out, to a theme, and they'll have their Titantron entrance video, what have you, and they'll come down to the ring, and that's it. Joe Hendry, for almost every single match that he is in, makes his own little entrance video, kind of parodying the wrestler he's going to fight. Some examples: when he fought Mr. Anderson, he did a cover of the Pokemon theme. It was great. I can't remember what event it was. I want to say Fear and Loathing, like 7 or 6. He came out to a parody of Wrecking Ball called Hendry Ball. One time he fought Jack Jester and came out to a cover version, his cover, of course, of the Venga Boys' Boom Boom Boom. Just look on YouTube for Joe Hendry entrances. This guy blows me away. He's so awesome. He's so funny, so talented, and a great singer too. And also made his own theme song called Icy Devil Me and You, which I think is it's a really good song. Again, you should look it up if you're ever on YouTube, and definitely look up Joe Hendry, the local hero. Speaking of Joe Hendry, you may have heard of the YouTube website What Culture. What Culture has now has their own wrestling promotion. WCPW, known as What Culture Pro Wrestling, features guys such as Joe Hendry, the ICW Heavyweight Champion, the Beast of Belfast, Big Damo. I've seen Jay Lethal on there, Noam Dar, and many others. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Next thing I'd like to talk about is the WWE Cruiserweight Classic. Now, when I first heard about this, I thought this was a great idea. We haven't seen cruiserweights since the days, really, of the Cruiserweight Champion Hornswoggle, guys like, Jamie Noble, Shane Helms, yada, yada, yada. Bunch of great names in this tournament. Some I have heard of, some I have not. The first week, which aired on July 13th, the first match we had, and this tournament has guys representing like 16 different countries, which I think is awesome. The first match, we had Chile's Alejandro Saez up against Mexico's Gran Metalik. Great match. Metalik did some great stuff off the ropes. Saez was more good at the the grounded pound type thing, so that was pretty cool. Next match, again, I may not be doing these in order. If I'm not, I apologize. We had Arya Daivari. If that name sounds familiar, his brother is Sean Daivari, also known as Daivari in WWE, representing Iran, up against Hong Kong, China's Ho Ho Lun. Now, from what I have heard, Ho Ho Lun started the first wrestling promotion in China, so that's pretty cool. Again, both great wrestlers. Daivari trained up in Minnesota, a great mat technician. Lun, great on the ropes, and Lun won that one. Metalik won the first one, so they both advanced to the second round. The third match of that night, of the first episode, featured Cedric Alexander, former Ring of Honor star. If the name sounds familiar, he was in Ring of Honor, representing the United States, up against Clement Pichot, who was, excuse me, oh boy, really good podcast, me burp and everything, the first one. Representing France, I heard he was trained by Lance Storm, so he's got that, greatness to him. Again, another great match. Alexander, of course, showcased his high-flying skills, and Pichot was great in the match as well. Alexander beat Pichot and moves on to the second round. In the final match, we have Japan's Kota Ibushi, a former IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champion, with Kenny Omega. They were known as the Golden Lovers. Apparently, he had a great match, I want to say at Wrestle Kingdom 9, up against now NXT's Shinsuke Nakamura. And he faced Kota Ibushi, of course, representing Japan, going up against American Samoa's Sean Maluta. Now, Maluta, again, not well known as Ibushi, but Maluta has roots in the wrestling business. He is part of the famous Samoan dynasty. I believe he can count Roman Reigns. I think, as More Ronaldo said, he can count Roman Reigns and the Usos as his cousins. Great match. Maluta, great with a savate kick. Very much like a super kick, but kind of curved, whatever. Ibushi, Very fast in the ring, very good. Defeated him with a last ride power bomb. A little different than the Undertaker's, because this one he holds on to you as he drops you. And Ibushi won that one, advancing on to the second round. I'll get you caught up on the second week. Second week, we had first match, Japan's Tajiri, former ECW television champion, tag team champion, former three-time WWE Cruiserweight champion, representing Japan, up against Australia's Damian Slater. Now, Tajiri, Daniel Bryan said this guy can kick, like, I don't know if it's lethal, but really good kicks that just knock you out. Of course, we saw the Tarantula, which was great to see again, and Tajiri got the win over Damian Slater. Another match in that episode featured TJ Perkins. For those of you who don't know, TJ Perkins was in TNA when he was known as Manic. Was in the Revolution with James Storm. A great wrestler representing the Philippines, up against Germany's Damac, who looks very much like Michael Jackson, has Michael Jackson mannerisms, and very cool. Perkins, like, some of the stuff he can do is just, it's off the wall, it's insane, it's so good. And the same can be said with Damac, like, great, showboating and all that stuff. Great match. Perkins gets the win, advances on to the second round. The next match featured up is Pakistan's Mustafa Ali. Again, some of these guys I've heard of, some of these guys I have not heard of. I do not know who Mustafa Ali is. Against Puerto Rico's Lince Dorado. Lince Dorado I have heard of before. Wrestled a match in TNA, I believe. Dorado did a great spot, a reverse jumping Hurricane, or jumping, some would say a jumping reverse Rana on Ali. That was just awesome. Ali did basically jump from one rope to the Spanish Fly. A Spanish Fly, to those who don't know, if you've heard of Kazarian, if you know his move, the Flux Capacitor, then you would know that. Dorado got the win. Great wrestler, great match. All these matches so far have been great. There has not been, I do not believe there has been one lackluster match yet. 1 second. And our final match was Kenneth Johnson, representing America, up against Japan's Akira Tozawa. Now, Tozawa, to my name, rings a bell. Tozawa, great on the mat. Johnson matched him hold for hold. Any move that Tozawa had, Johnson could counter, and vice versa. And just a great match. Tozawa coming out with the win, but a fantastic showing by America's Kenneth Johnson. Of course, the two commentators we have are Canada's Mauro Ranallo. I am liking this guy every time I hear him more and more and more. I wrote a tweet a few weeks ago. I compared him to TNA's Mike Tenay, a guy who knows what he's talking about when the guys are in the ring, knows the moves. He ferreted that tweet, which was pretty awesome. We also have Daniel Bryan as a commentator. Bryan, of course, been in many different promotions, most famously for WWE, 4-time, as I said, World Heavyweight Champion. And he knows his stuff. Like, a lot of these guys he has actually faced before in the independents and, in other countries, other promotions, what have you. And it's been great so far. Next episode, I will recap the third episode of the Cruiserweight Classic series. Also, I'd like to talk a little bit about Chikara. Chikara is a promotion been around since 2002, run by Mike Quackenbush. And every year they have the King of Trios tournament. The King of Trios tournament is basically a 3-on-3 single elimination tournament. Last year's winners were Team AAA, which consisted of Aerostar, Drago, and Phoenix. Some of those guys featured on, if they sound familiar, featured on Lucha Underground. Now, this year's tournament The participants so far are the Batiri, Kobold, Kodama, and Obarian, the Colony, Fire Ant, Silver Ant, and Soldier Ant, Heidi Lovelace, and I believe the current Chikara Campeones de Parejas, NRG, Hype Rockwell, and Race Jackson, team #CWC, guys who are in the Cruiserweight Classic, Cedric Alexander, Drew Gulak, and Johnny Gargano. Team JWP, which I believe is a women's Japanese promotion. That team consists of Command Bolshoi, forgive me if I say these names wrong, Hanako Nakamori, and Manami Katsu. Another team announced, Team Original Divas Revolution. Jazz, a member from WWE, former WWE Women's Champion, Mickie James, and Victoria, also known as Tara. Team Police Squad, featuring Bill Carr, Officer Warren Barksdale, and Super Cop Dick Justice. Barksdale is the only one I've heard of. I don't follow Chikara enough to know all these names, but again, some of these names I know, some of these names I won't. Team Sendai Girls, I believe another Japanese women's wrestling promotion, consists of Cassandra Miyagi, Dash Chisako, and Miko Satomura. That name I have heard of before. Team Shimmer. Shimmer is a women's promotion in the United States. This team features Candice LeRae, Crazy Mary Dobson, and Solo Darling. I have seen two of these three ladies wrestle, Dobson and Darling up in Ring of Honor, and I've heard of LeRae. We have Team United Nations, consisting of Juan Francisco de Coronado, Prakash Sbar, and the Proletariat Boar of Moldova. And the last team I can see here that has been entered is the Warriors 3. We have Oleg the Usurper, former Chikara Grand Champion Princess Kimberly, and the Young Lions Cup Champion Thunderfrog. Well, that will about do it for me for this week. I'm going to start up a Facebook page. I'll let you know in the comment section below, what it is. And this will most likely be a bi-monthly show. Maybe it'll be every week. I'll try to bring it to you every Monday or Tuesday. I believe it's Monday now. And so I hope you enjoyed listening. And stay tuned for next week's episode, or next couple weeks' episode. For Terry Koss, I have been Terry Koss. Thanks for listening.